Hello, I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley.
And I'm her daughter, Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Heidi and I want to welcome you to Open to Hope Conversations, the podcast.
We believe that the greatest gift you can give yourself after a loss is hope, using this moment to connect with others who have not only survived but thrived.
So let's get started. Welcome to the Open to Hope show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Well, Heidi, we have got a really interesting guest today, and I want to get right to him because I know you all love to hear about people who have had transformative experiences, and you're going to hear from one today. We're going to talk about loss, leadership, and transformation. Heidi, could you introduce our guest?
Sure, Mom. And I love the title Loss, Leadership, and Transformation. And we're going to talk to someone that knows a lot about this. His name is Pierre Mousseau. He is the CEO of High Energy Transport. In 2020, he lost his 20-year-old son, Parker. And through that devastation, he experienced a profound spiritual encounter that pulled him out of despair and into a life of surrender, faith, and purpose. Pierre is the author of From the Ashes, the story of a grieving father, a broken CEO, and a journey through grief, grace, and the fire of faith. Welcome, Pierre.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you on the show today, Pierre, and I know it's going to be very inspiring to a lot of people. Could you talk about Parker's death? He was age 20, and take us a little bit at the beginning of your journey.
Yeah, most certainly. Actually, 5 years ago, last Friday on the 19th, he drove himself to the local hospital here with some stomach pains. To make a long story short, this was during COVID. So unfortunately, I was not allowed to be with him within the emergency room. And unfortunately, too, he waited a very long time before he was seen. And by the time he was seen, they rushed him into surgery, but too much time had passed. And what had happened is his bowel had twisted. He was admitted into ICU, and he spent 9 weeks in ICU before unfortunately, I had to make the decision to take him off life support. And so it was on December 12th, he passed.
Wow, that's quite a story. Whoa. And what a terrible time. My husband was in the hospital during COVID also, and it was an awful time for everybody. But this story is wicked, really rough.
Well, and the fact that he waited, I think I read 15 hours, and
Yeah.
he knew that he was in that kind of agony. Or maybe if they did, they didn't have people that wait, to help him.
Yeah, I mean, hospitals are overcrowded. I don't blame the hospitals. I mean, the nurses and doctors did the best that they could with the resources that they had. But it was overcrowded, and unfortunately, it took over 15 hours for him to even be seen. And it was brutal, right? It was brutal because he would call every 45 minutes and want me to come and be with him, and I couldn't. The hospital would just not let me in. So it was not an easy time for sure, for sure.
Oh, wow, that's incredible. It's been 5 years. You sound fairly philosophical about it. People are pretty angry early on. How did you get to where you are? Because there are a lot of angry people about the treatment of their family members.
I was extremely angry, and I spent, I've never been much of a religious person. I had not been to church in 30 years, and I mean, I was angry with God. I was angry with our Canadian government, and I went into a Great Depression. I remember one morning, a few months after Parker had passed, my company lost our largest client, and we were on the verge of bankruptcy, and I went into a great depression, and I kissed my wife goodbye one Saturday morning with no intention of coming back. I was going out to kill myself. I don't know if that's appropriate to say or not,
Oh,
but
yeah. Sorry.
but that's the truth. And I was driving my Mustang, and I saw this big old maple tree, and I had picked that tree, and I was picking up speed, and I was going to run my Mustang into that tree and end my suffering. Right, the pain was so great and so severe, and but then you know what? During while I was approaching that tree, I just got glimpses of my daughter and my stepson, my wife, my employees, people that are counting on me, and all of a sudden I just felt calmness. And as I felt calmness, I started slowing down, and I just stopped and came back home. And that was the point. So that was about 4 or 5 months after Parker had died, and I had spent the next few years still very angry and very upset and pushing through. But I had to save my company, so I had pushed my grief aside to save my company. It took me about a year and a half to save my company and to provide a place to work for my people. And there was a year and a half of full depression, full anger. I was angry at everything. I was angry at my wife, at my at God. I was angry with me. I was angry with myself not being strong enough to handle this situation. Most men don't talk about their feelings, and I was one of those men. And it wasn't until after my company was saved where then I started to all the Parker stuff was coming out of me, and I got help. I started seeing a psychologist. um I had gained 80 pounds since Parker had died. I've always been fit, so I was trying to lose some weight. But the biggest thing for me and how things started happening, to share a story with you, is I had that fork in the road. And I've always been a very positive person, but I felt myself leaning towards the left side of the fork of the road, which I call negativity, depression, and so on. And what happened is I was out for a drive in the country, and I saw a sign for a comic book store. And I was driving through this little town. And what happened is when I was a child, was a very rough upbringing. Was We won't get into that. Maybe that's a story for another time, maybe. But it was not the greatest of upbringing. And Spider-Man was my out as a child. And Spider-Man, his name was Peter Parker. And when he put on the costume, he was
Right.
Spider-Man, and he was like my guardian. And then it hit me, you know, Spider-Man, when his uncle was murdered, caught the murderer and was contemplating, taking his life. And he made a choice to release him and have him get arrested instead. And it just resonated with me that I was at that fork in the road. And I don't know if you've put two and two together, but when Parker was born, my name is Pierre, and in English it translates to Peter. So together, Parker and I are Peter Parker. So together, Parker and I are Spider-Man. And it just resonated. That just brought everything out, right? And I knew I had to make a decision at that time.
Knew you had to make a decision. What
Yeah.
decision did you have to make?
I had to make a decision to go on and be a positive impact in life, and I had to be back to being a good husband to my wife and a good father to my daughter and stepson. And that Sunday, I'm sitting at my island in front of my wife, and I just got this unbelievable urge to go to church. And I
Mhm.
had not been to church in 30 years. And so I looked up at my wife and I said, I'm going to go to church. And she was, what? Because we've not been in 30 church in 30 years. So I went, and I sat in the last row, the last pew, and there was a deacon that was giving a homily, and he spoke about grief. He
Mm.
Wow.
spoke about the loss of a child. And I said to myself, wow, like I just started crying. And the lady to my left, it was a three-seater pew that I was in. A lady just put her hand on my shoulder, and I was just crying. And then, so I reached out to Deacon Curtis afterwards, and I like talk about intervention. I mean, that's not coincidence. The odds of that happening. So I have not missed church since that day. I've been to church every weekend. So I was going through a really tough period, and I was in the shower and I was crying, and I was on the verge of collapsing. I was missing my son so much, and just life, it was just brutal. And then all of a sudden, it's not like I was crying out to God. I just was not well, and I was on the verge of collapse. And all of a sudden, I had my eyes closed, and I felt this overwhelming. I saw this wave of purple, bright, bright, bright purple. Now I have an analytical mind, so right away I opened my eyes to see if I could see it. And then I said, okay, I'm going to close my eyes because it's not real, and it'll be gone. And I closed my eyes, and a wave of purple was there, and it was bright. And then all of a sudden, I felt what felt like arms reaching around me and holding me. And I felt this unbelievable feeling of love. Words can't even explain it.
Mhm.
And I got out of the shower and right away I typed it into my phone because I didn't want to forget. And I went downstairs and I couldn't even speak to my wife. I was crying. She thought something was wrong.
Mhm.
And I had her read my notes. And I knew then, I knew then that God was real. I knew then that Jesus was real. But more than that, what I realized is the pain that God must have felt to watch his son being tortured and ridiculed. I knew that God had felt the same pain that I had felt losing Parker and being in ICU and Parker going through it, ICU delirium and not knowing who I was and calling names and like and Mother Mary, what she had to go through to watch her son going through this, it just brought everything together, and it was truly amazing. Words can't describe it. It was just truly amazing.
You've done a beautiful job of describing it. It's very,
Thank you.
very touching. So tell us where you are today and how that changed.
Yeah, before I started writing the book, someone came up to me and said to me, "Well, it's been over 4 years now. You must be okay. You must be healed." And
Mhm.
I looked at him, and I wasn't angry. I
Right.
wasn't angry. In fact, I felt love for that individual because I am so grateful that the individual that was talking to me had no clue, and I hope that he never does. I hope
Right.
that he never, ever, ever has to know what it's like to lose a child, because
Right.
in my opinion, it's the worst pain anyone can feel. That's my opinion.
Heidi and I always discuss this, right, Heidi, that your pain that you've known is the biggest pain you can know. I mean, you really have to, the death of a spouse, for some people, the
Yeah,
death of an animal. For you, it's been the death of a child.
I only know the death of my brother. So I don't know the death of a child, mom. You know the death of your son. And like you said, it's like my friend Elizabeth DeVita Rayburn says, the worst loss is the one that's kicked us to the ground, where we don't know. The pain is so great that not only do we not know if we're going to survive, we don't know if we want to, which is, Pierre, why your story is so strong, because you didn't know if you really wanted to. And from that, you were able to eventually find hope again.
exactly.
It's so important for those that need that example as a lifeline right now, because
Absolutely.
there's people out there that don't know if they want to survive at this point.
That's right. And everybody's pain is differently, right?
Yeah.
It's different. When I lost my oldest brother, I felt tremendous amount of pain. And then when I lost my mother, and then a year later, my oldest brother, and
Wow.
then 3.5 years later, my son.
Wow.
And in each one I felt pain, and each one I felt, oh my God, this is unimaginable pain, right? So I always say you're entitled to your feelings, right? You're
Mhm.
entitled to feel what you feel. And
Right.
and somebody's loss is a great pain for them that they need to survive and push through and get through. To ask for help is strength. It takes a lot of strength to ask for help. And my message to men out there, and women of course as well, is that's a huge sign of strength, not weakness. So ask for help. It's okay to ask, and it's okay to cry. It's okay, and it's okay to be sad. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with it.
Now tell us about the speaking and things that you're doing.
Yeah, so I want to make a difference, and there's people out there that are hurting, and I still hurt. It's going to be 5 years in 9 weeks. It's going to be 5 years that he died, and I still have moments. And I have people that say to me, "Well, you must have healed," and my response is this: is that I'm broken, and I'm always going to be broken. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to be unhappy. That doesn't mean that, right? In my opinion, losing a child, it's not something that you heal. It's not something that you get over. It's something that you survive. And what I want to do is I'm at that fork on the road, and I make a decision to either go left or right. And I want to make my decision to go right, or I've made my decision to go right. And I've made my decision to help others. I have a gift that I speak well, and I'm not shy, and I've spoken to large crowds, and I know I can make a difference. So the whole purpose of writing from the ashes is to hope that it reaches just one person, just one. And I'm hoping that it changes somebody's life. I'm hoping the right person or someone hears it and says, yeah, you know what? I'm going to do this and maybe I make a positive impact.
How do people get in touch with you?
You can reach me at my email at pierre@pierremousseau.com. Is probably the easiest way. And if anybody is listening to this and wants to reach out to me and just ask questions, I would absolutely love the opportunity to help someone. So I'd be more than happy to hear from somebody. But that would probably be the best way to reach out to me.
All right, a lovely
Yeah.
thing. Well, thank you so much, Pierre, for the work you're doing in Parker's memory. It's really a wonderful thing.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know he'd be proud, and he's there. He's watching down on me, and one day we're all going to be reunited with our loved ones. And I would like to say one more thing, if before we go, is that we can't take our money with us and our personal belongings with us, and the one true thing that we have as human beings that doesn't cost us anything is to give love, right? And one thing I will say to people watching, losing Parker has made me a better husband, a better father, a better brother, a better boss, a better human being. Because now I can tell you that I cherish every moment that I have in my life. And when I leave for work in the morning, I never leave without hugging and kissing my wife goodbye. And there's been a couple of times that I have left and I've turned around and I've come back, walked in the house, hugged her and kissed her, told her I loved her, and then went back because that's what you can give. Human beings, that's what we can give. We can give our love and give our thanks and our appreciation and our patience and make a difference in everyone's lives that we touch. So
Yeah, thank you. That's a lovely message. And also, I want to say to you all on the other side too, is that you need to accept love, accept people that want to help you now, give them the opportunity to serve you if you're early in your grief. That's also an important factor.
absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
guess I will just say, Pierre, that you've not only survived, but you've thrived.
Yeah.
And I love what you're doing. Like you
Thank you.
said, difference in the world. And I know that Parker is your guiding light. Thank you.
Absolutely, he is.
Mhm.
Making him proud. Making him proud.
You are.
Well, Heidi and I want to thank everyone for joining us on this show today. And we want to remind you always that if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own, and God bless.
I'm Dr. Heidi Horsley. You have been listening to Open to Hope, the podcast. You can follow Open to Hope on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. To learn more, visit us at opentohope.com and go to Apple Podcasts to subscribe.
I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley. Join us again next week for another Open to Hope conversation, where we invite you to lean on our hope until you find your own.